All right, hi everybody. Welcome to our special pre-Purim class. Last week we had our Rosh Chodesh Adar class, and now we have a special class to get us even more ready for Purim when it starts next Thursday evening into Friday morning. So last week, as actually we were just discussing before I started recording, the chap of the class is why is it that Rosh Chodesh Adar insists that we are marbin b'simcha, we expand our joy, and why isn't it the case that it details what that entails, right? Why doesn't it tell us what we do? Why doesn't it tell us we drink a lot of wine, or we eat a lot of meat, or we wear a ton of new clothes, like whatever it is, all the reverse stuff of Av? And the answer that ends up coming out in the halacha, in the Nite Gavriel and elsewhere, is that because there's no way to actually universalize what it means to increase joy, because joy maps to someone's authentic self. So each person's joy maps to who they are as a person, which means that Adar becomes a process of learning what it is that you, your soul, yourself needs, and also becoming the person who can provide those things to yourself. And by the end of that process, as you reach Purim, you are both somebody who has been cared for and loved by yourself to now be increasing your joy. You are taking care of yourself better. You are giving yourself what you need, and you're in a better place emotionally, which means you've prepared yourself now for Purim. It's hachshara, as we'd call it in halacha. You've now made yourself a fit and ready person to enter the real task of Purim, which is, as we will see, really digging in your hands and doing the work of joy as work. So this is the intersection between the ecstasy or euphoria, as Lauren had said before, of joy with the, let's call it the regularity or the practice of halacha. That Purim and I would say Torah and Kadosh Baruch Hu refuse to just let joy be this dissipating feeling, this liquid, right, that just can slip between your fingers, but rather it is, we make for it kalim, we make for it a framework in which it can be sustained. So I want to share my screen so we can start doing some sources together. I need my water. All right. Great. Can everyone see that okay? Much better. Okay. So we'll start with the great eagle, Hanesher Agadol, Rambam. Rambam says in his Mishnah Torah, his law code, and the laws of Megillah, but that's really just some autonomy for Purim. He writes, all of the books of the prophets and of the holy writings will be canceled in the Messianic era. Cancel culture. It started with the Rambam. All right, so all of the Nevi'im and all of the Ksuvim are done, garnished when Mashiach comes. Chutz, except for, which one? Take a guess. Esther, of course. It's the Inyana D'Yoma. That's what we're dealing with. All right, so except for Esther, Esther sticks around. Why? Why is it Esther? It will continue to exist, and because Rambam is a very sober person, he says it will continue to exist, and the Torah will too. Don't worry, the Torah doesn't go away. The Torah sticks, and we have also the halacha. Halacha stays. So when Mashiach comes, he's not saying like we have some kind of anarchy. You don't keep Torah anymore. He's saying, listen, he holds by. Is it Shmuel who says there's nothing between, or no, it's Rabbi Yishmael. Says nothing between this world and the world to come, except for what he says, like Jewish independence or autonomy. That's the only thing that's different. So like the world will be the same. We keep halacha, we still have the Torah of Moses, but the prophetic works are all done, except for Esther. So before we explain why do you think that's the case? Why is it that when Mashiach comes, all of prophecy and the other kind of like miscellaneous writings end up getting canceled? Think about it historically. I'll put it that way.
Well, maybe because it's related to remembering Amalek and our how fragile we are as a Jewish people, and that there's the cold door of Adar, there's someone who will rise up against us. I know it ain't happy, but
Yeah, real bummer, Lauren.
yeah, I know. It's my personality.
Okay, but you're saying that like history is a time of struggle. It's very Hegelian, very Marxist even, right? History is a time of struggle, but when Mashiach comes, all struggles, the dialectic will be fulfilled, all struggles will be revealed. We'll have a dictatorship of the proletariat and everything will be fine. So the prophetic works are full of, they're full of cosmic enemies. Gog, Magog, right? Amalek is this like mythic, bête noire of Judaism. Right, and they will be defeated. They will be schmeiced out. Right, it's what we're reading about this Shabbos, the Shabbos Zachor. So because of that, in a sense, there's no more. No, but this is actually a really beautiful point, right? History is struggle, and when Mashiach comes, there will be resolution. There will be peace. Right, it's an irenic model. Right now, there will be peace. We can relax. We don't need to worry so much anymore. That's beautiful. I think that's a lovely interpretation. Okay. Anyone else have any other ideas? There's no wrong ideas. Come on, it's Torah. Elu elu divrei Elokim chayim. These are the words of the living God.
Cool.
I want to, yeah. Shosh?
So I was thinking maybe because Purim is the time when we all accepted the Torah voluntarily.
Yeah.
We weren't forced into it.
Yeah.
It was we were all almost like all shuvas. So to remember that and know that once everything else is canceled, that's going to have to be something we remember.
Okay, right. So Annie's referring to the idea that verses at Sinai in which the rabbis say actually, in a sense, we were coerced into accepting the Torah because we were threatened with a mountain held over our heads. Esther is when we accept the Torah intentionally. We accept it consensually, without coercion. Because as kimu v'kiblu, it says, when all the letters go out and all the people of Israel accept the letters and they fulfill them. And it says that that's like the final acceptance of the Torah. So you're saying Purim, Megillas Esther, is an example of what it looks like to be, fully immersing yourself, fully deciding. Your full self is in it. And that's a good symbol for what the Messianic age is like. Yeah? I'm saying like we're all Baalei Tshuva when Mashiach comes. We're all in the mikveh. We're all in the mikveh. Beautiful. All right, any other ideas? All right, well, I'll give an answer, but I think all of you have been touching on something really, really like beautiful ideas. Another idea is also just, and this is like very simple in a sense, the prophecies are prophesying about the end of history. So when history ends, they're no longer needed anymore, right? So the prophecies are about time, they're about history. So once Mashiach comes, all the prophecies are fulfilled. They're done, except for one, except for Esther. And that's very interesting, right? Why is it that Esther is the one that says, like, in a sense, Esther can't be fulfilled? That's the implied claim, right? The only way to fulfill, you can fulfill the prophecies of Isaiah. You can fulfill the prophecies of Ezekiel, right? The third temple gets built, et cetera, et cetera. But Esther can't be fulfilled. You can't exhaust it. Esther is never ending in a sense. Why is that? He says, although all memories of the difficulties endured by our people will be nullified, to Lauren's point, right? For the former difficulties will be forgotten and they will all be hidden from my eye, right? Mashiach as a time, like you said, of a time of comfort, a time of healing. The celebration of the days of Purim will never be nullified.
Can you remind me, what is the prophecy of Esther? What is the prophecy?
We're about to see the point that Rambam's about to make. That's like, this is the pasuk he's hinging it on, okay? He says, so basically just to say, like, here's what it's not. Normal prophecy is healing, right? You've gone through trouble, struggles, enemies, striving, right? Exile. And what Mashiach, what the end of time brings is healing to those things. You will no longer have difficulty. It's like it's negating something bad. It's like a double negative, right? You're negating something bad. There's no longer any bad. But a double negative is different than a positive. And Purim is in the pasuk here is, and these days of Purim will not pass from amongst the Jews, nor will their remembrance cease from their descendants. So inside of the prophecy of Megillas Esther, a very curious book in which literally the word God never appears, it is, what it promises is something that never ends. Right? The promise that we see in Isaiah is that things will end. What will end? Our difficulties, our tsuris, right? Mashiach is a time in which we won't hurt anymore. Exactly like what Lauren was saying. But Esther is not saying you won't hurt anymore. That's like getting from negative to 0. Esther is saying, you're going to 1,000,000, baby, right? You're going to infinity. You're a limit that will not stop ending, right? You're going to keep on going forever. These days of Purim will not pass from amongst the Jews, nor will their remembrance cease from their descendants. So there's something inherently messianic, in a sense, about Megillas Esther, says the Rambam, in the sense that it is the one book of Nach that fits even when Mashiach comes. Right? Even when Mashiach comes, this is a prophecy that we will still need in some way. Now that's a daring idea. Right? You'd think that when after Mashiach comes, in a sense, we won't need prophecy anymore. We're living sweet, fat, and happy in the lap of God. But no, we still need Esther. We still need something because it is mat'im, right? It is fit. It is apropos to Mashiach because it, like Mashiach, is expansive. It, like Mashiach, keeps on going. Right? The boundaries are burst. Ufaratsta, viafutsu, right? Viafutsu. There's an idea in Chassidus, actually, that like Mashiach comes when the well springs will all spring forth in the holiness of Torah and Nevuah and prophecy just flow forth throughout the whole land. That brings like that expansiveness, that catharsis is like, that's the messianic sensibility. So Rambam says, yeah, all the prophecies will be fulfilled because the prophecies are promising healing to you, promising an end to exile, an end to suffering. But that gets you to the end. What takes you past the end? That's the book that stays when Mashiach comes. And that book is Megillas Esther. Because these days will not pass from your eyes. Their remembrance will not cease from their descendants. Okay, so there's something messianic about Esther, and I think it's not unfair or incorrect to say, and about Purim. Purim is the most messianic holiday we have, besides Shabbos, right? And Purim, it touches the hem of infinity, right? What's the word I'm looking for? Grazes, right? It grazes the edge of forever. Because the boundlessness of Purim is what we're going to explore, and its deliciously messianic quality. Okay, but again, like that sets the kasha, right? That's the motivating kasha of this class. The kasha, and we know what kasha is. Kasha, the problem, right? The problem that's an engine. The kasha of this class is, how can you have a day that's endless and boundless and yet have to intersect with the boundaries of halakha? How can you have hilchos euphoria, right? How can you have halacha of ecstasy? That's what we're going to try to explore. Are those two things counterposed to each other, right? Is Purim just something that happens to you? Is this an explosion of joy and you get caught in the shrapnel of happiness, the shrappiness? Or is Purim something actually that you participate in and you, in some ways, you actually can contain? So those of us who take the Kabbalah class as well are by now familiar with the dynamic of mashpia and makabel, right? Bestowing or flowing and receiving. And I think that those terms in the back of our minds could also be helpful as well. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Ketzad, classic halachic question. New? How? How do you do it? All right, give me the user manual here. What's the user manual for pop open the glove compartment? Tell me how Purim. Ketzad chayvas suda. Okay, this is the kind of the question I want to hinge it on. What's the main mitzvah for Purim in a sense? It's doing a Purim Sida, right? Doing a Purim feast. What is Purim? Purim is, it's a party day, right? We're celebrating our escape. We're celebrating our victory. We're celebrating our triumph. And to do so, what's the classic way you do that? How do you celebrate something nice?
Like any Jew, you eat and drink.
Right, you eat and drink.
Especially food.
You sponsor, what are you gonna eat and drink that's not food?
No, I mean, like, if you want to attract Jews and get them all together, make them happy, you give them food.
No, 100%. God bless all of you who come to these classes because I can't give you food, right? Like I believe very strongly in providing provisions when you teach Torah. Like Torah should be sweet in our mouths, just like cholent or whatever. But God bless you all for what is sweetness other than Torah, of course. But very much, right? Like, what do you do when something good happens to you? You sponsor Kiddush, right? That's what you do. And that's actually a very important point, which we'll get to in a second. Like, what do you do when something good happens to you? You sponsor Kiddush. So, Ketzad chayvas suda, right? How do you fulfill the mitzvah of throwing a party? Gewalt, we have a mitzvah that we have to throw a party. You should eat meat and prepare as attractive a feast as one's means permit. One should drink wine until one becomes drunk, intoxicated, and falls asleep in a stupor. Okay, so two things. One of the classic things that we talk about for Purim is that oh yeah, it's the booze holiday, right? And Rambam is the classic stick in the mud answer. It's yeah, you only need to drink as much as you nod off in your cups. That's all you really need. Like the sheer for drinking on Purim is that you get drowsy. So, he's a doctor. He doesn't want people to drive drunk or whatever. But what's the key here? So let's just make sure we just get the point. So what's the shiur? What's the criteria for having a Suda on Purim? What do you need to do? Or what do you need to provide?
As much as your means will allow.
Aha. Now that, I love that that's what you went to, right? What's the ikar of the Suda? It's that you make it as much as you can. So this is unlike any other shiur. Other shiurim we have, or other criteria, measures for filling a mitzvah are it should be the size of an egg. It should be the size of an olive. It should be, if it's liquid, it should be as much as you can put in your cheek, right? So it's like a discrete amount of material, but it doesn't say, right? To say a bracha on something. Some people say beitza, some people say kazayas, right? Some people say an egg, something like an olive. It's oh, how beautiful and how beloved the Jews are that they only had to do it like an egg, but they decided to do it like an olive. Even a little bite of food, the Jews want to make brachas on. That's what makes God love us. There's a beautiful midrash about that. But what's the criterion for a Suda for Purim? It's not, was it terminus ad quem, it's a terminus post quem. No, wait, it's the other way around? I forget. The point is it's as much food until a limit, not as much food from a limit, right? You can do as much as you can, but think about what the psychology of that is, right? You're not being an accountant. You're not being an actuary trying to figure out the classic Jewish halachic, did I do the shear? Did I eat enough matzah on Pesach, right? And you're just mowing down an entire sheet of matzah at the Seder to make sure that I did the proper shear of food. But here the point isn't that you're making sure you get past something. Here, what are you reaching for? You're reaching for your limits. You're reaching, right? The boundlessness of Megillas Esther, the boundlessness of Mashiach. You're trying to reach the infinity of how much food you can, cram down your gullet, right? How much food that you can throw a lavish feast. You want to see how hard you can party, how much you can give, how big you can go. You want to go big or go home on Purim. That's the ikar. So even for the sober Rambam, even he is saying, sure, it's not about getting drunk, but what it is about is trying to reach the limit of what you can give. And that's going to set the ethic for the rest of Purim. Yeah, someone want to say something?
why on earth would the rabbis not have changed the calendar in that case so that Purim never falls on a Friday? If you want to really wreck Purim, if you really want to make it impossible to have a proper Suda, you make it on a Friday. Like,
Yeah, worth noting.
why?
It's Purim's on a Friday this year. It's and the mitzvah for doing a Suda, by the way, is on the daytime of Purim. So you need to I would say make sure you do all your Shabbos cooking Thursday afternoon before Purim. And that'll be really Mesiras Nefesh because you'll be fasting most likely. So it's really really throwing yourself into it. And then on Friday morning, you have a delightful Purim brunch. Mimosa after mimosa. Just a delicious Purim brunch. It is a weird Purim this year, but in some ways, maybe it's for the best because people will be prevented from going to each other's houses because it's Friday. You don't have time. So thank you, God, for saving our lives. Okay, so very important, right? So first we start with, like, in a sense, the paradigm of Purim, which is party, right? Purim is a day of party. You celebrate by manifesting your joy in the material world, right? Think about what a party is, right? Like, if something wonderful happened to you, and what you did was you just kept it private, and you never manifested it at all, you never released it into the world, then you have to wonder how much it really impacted you. You have to wonder if you're really feeling it. Or let's say you do decide to manifest it, but you only kind of I don't know, you're like Tom Brady about it, and you have 6 almonds, and you're like, that's enough almonds for me, thank you. Right? The fact that you are controlling yourself, controlling your intake, means that in some ways you haven't let the thing take over your life. The happy thing now is running your brain, it's running your soul. If the happy thing is like a Dybbuk, it's possessed you and it's taking you over, and the happy thing is now making the decisions, right? That's what it's like to be possessed by something good. So Shosh is raising a good objection and saying, what about, let's say, what about introverts versus extroverts? That's true. Not every, and to the point of the first of the class last week, is that people's joy is authentic to who they are. So if it doesn't make you happy to throw open the doors wide and invite a zillion people in non-COVID times, then one shouldn't do that. You can invite close friends over and you have have a small personal Suda, or let's say you even need some alone time. Sure, but then the question again becomes, can you provide authentic joy to yourself? Because just doing it with yourself is still a perfect way to do Purim. You can be by yourself on Purim, that's fine. But the question is, are you going to be manifesting the joy? That's the real question, and that's going to look different for each person. So again, there's no way outside to judge that. So that was a perfect example of exactly the point. Joy is about authenticity. It's not about looking good. And I think to that point also, I want to actually make a little bit of psak here as a quasi-rabbi. I want to say that the Rambam saying eat meat, if you are a vegetarian, or let's say you're a meat reductionist, if you're a meat reductionist, I would say Purim is a day you should have meat. But if you're somebody who does not eat meat, then whatever is meat in your life is what you should be eating on Purim, right? If you are an ovo-lacto vegetarian, buy some quail eggs and buy some really good cheese, right? A good fish. I don't know. If you are a vegan, go to a vegan store and get the most expensive vegan stuff you can find, right? The point is that you are lavishing Purim with delectables. That's the point. Find what is delectable and delight in it. But that's the ethic of Purim. Yeah.
Yeah, no, couldn't those things whether you're an introvert or if you're vegan, couldn't that be considered part of your means? I think, yeah, that's just.
Oh, very nice. That's a very nice synthetic reading of it. Eat meat and provide a Suda to your means, right? Which then again subjectifies what that entails, right? It's going to be the biggest thing that fits you. But that's the key, though. Again, what we're learning in Adar is how to manifest joy, so that when the day comes and Purim is it's natural to us. We know exactly what it's like to splurge a little bit, right? We know exactly what it's like to order in instead of cooking or whatever it is, right? We know to treat ourselves a little bit kind. That's the key for Adar. We treat ourselves a little bit kinder each day. We give ourselves a little bit more love each day. And by the time Purim comes, love is coming out of us with so much less resistance, right? To get the blockage out of the way, to get the resistance to love, resistance to kindness out of the way. So many ways this world tries to teach us that love and joy are things we shouldn't have or we don't deserve. And it's not true for us. It's not true for you. It's not true for anybody. We all deserve it. And Purim is trying to prove it. Okay, v'chein. So we switch from Suda, and this is the way Rambam works, right? You start with the inner and then you move outer. And this is going to push a little bit maybe to like the question of having a private Purim, but Purim insists in a sense that we don't silo ourselves off from the world. Because just after we have a Suda, right, a feast, which we throw, also we need to give shalach manos, right? We need to send 2 gifts of, again, meat, or 2 kinds of food, which you say 2 different brachas on. That's like part of the whole, or you send the point is a non-trivial amount of food. The point is, again, you don't skimp. You're not a skinflint. When you give to someone else, you've already like started the energy in motion. When you give to someone else, you are generous. And you start that with your Suda, right? You don't skimp on yourself. And when you give to someone else, again, you're not trying to just give the shear. You don't just give what you have to, but the wheels are greased, they're turning, and the food is flowing. Yitzchak just said in the chat, and this is a good point as well, the food needs to be ready to eat. Because the point is that what are you really giving people on Purim? It's not really food. What are you giving them?
Less work?
Oh, very nice. Yeah, actually, there's an idea. Actually, you don't do work on Purim. You don't do work on Purim. So, like, maybe So I think that's a good intuitive. Right, the Purim shouldn't be a tircha. It shouldn't be a struggle. Purim should be fun, right? You should be having a good time. So you shouldn't give someone something that's going to stress them out. Like don't give them like a turtle, right? If you give someone like a turtle as a gift, you need to also like encourage them to have a living will, because the turtle will outlive them. Like if you give someone a turtle, you now have to like, here's something you need to bequeath to somebody. Like here's a responsibility you will have for the rest of your life, right? So you don't want to give someone like something that then like demands their attention. You want to give something that will not be work. And let's push that even further. It's not work. That's a negative. What's the positive of that? It's not work. Rather, it is joy. You're giving someone else pleasure, right? You're giving them a basket of food which they can enjoy on that day, in that moment. You're giving someone something that they can enjoy right now, right? You're not giving them, as Yitzchak said, you're not giving them like pulse or beans. You're not giving them ingredients for Shabbos, right? Like you're not giving something useful. You're giving them something enjoyable. And those are 2 very different qualities. Purim is a day you enjoy. Purim is not a day you appreciate, right? Those are 2 very different, like immediate versus mediated, right? So, and then gives the pasuk for that. V'chol hamar beli shloach l're'im mishubach, right? Anyone who, again, like goes to the limit, gives as much as they can, that person is praised. So the encouragement for the right way to be on Purim is that you're supposed to go beyond. You're supposed to go as far as you can go. You start with yourself, making sure you eat, and then you move on to making sure others can eat as well. There's an insistence that, in a sense, what are you making sure other people have? You start with your friends, and then we're going to get to the really important mitzvah of Purim, in my opinion, which is gifts to the poor. You think that the party is the most important thing, but really the telos of this whole thing is that Purim is a universal right that every single Jew has. Even, and I would say especially, people who don't have the means. Prepare as attractive a feast as one's means permit. Well, what if you're poor? Then what's your Purim going to look like? No one should have to look at their Jones's Purim, right? Their neighbor's Purim and go like, I wish I had a Purim like that. Rather, everyone has a right to a real Purim. Everyone has a right to a lavish Purim of delight. Everyone has a right to joy. Everyone has a right to pleasure. So the Mishloach Manot, in a sense, are giving little mini Sudas to each of your friends, or to 2 friends at least. But you should give as many as you can. And a little mini meal, right? Because it's got 2 brachas on it. It's a real little, like, kind of little, I don't know, yeah, little. It's not just a snack. It's more than a snack, right? It's real little food. It's real meal. But then we move on to, I think, and this is where he's pushing. And you need to also distribute to the poor on Purim. Ein pachot mi shnei aniyim, and you need to give to at least 2, right? You never do just 1. Notein lekol echad matana echas o maos o mine tavshil o mine ochlim, and you give to each one of them a gift, or money, or food, or a cooked dish, or some kind of food. And again, he quotes the pasuk, "Ve'ein medaktik," and this is the key. This is the key to Purim, and this is when we get back to the Messianic nature of it. This is one of my. I don't have a very good memory. I don't have a very good memory for like remembering psukim and lines and stuff. But this line, it's like burned in my brain. Ve'ein medaktikin b'ma'ot Purim ela kol haposhet yado litol notnin lo. We aren't medaktik. You aren't punctilious. You aren't pecuniary. You are not watching your wallet to make sure you still have something to get home with. You are not an actuary on Purim. You are not worried about what you're losing. Rather, anyone who sticks out their hand to take, you give. That's the ethic of Purim. And do we see how Rambam built the momentum of Purim to lead here? And I would say, and this is again why I did the class last week, we have the 2 weeks of preparing yourself to be expansive in joy, such that when the day comes on Purim and someone sticks out their hand, you've gotten rid of all of your resistance to saying, I don't know. What's really the best for this person? You just give. You just give. By the time Purim comes, you have expanded yourself in joy such that now you are a conduit of it. You are, in a sense, a space in which joy occurs, and it flows into you and it flows out of you. And here's the really key, and to Lauren's point again, it is a peaceful, resolved feeling because you're not worried anymore. You're not worried that because love is the one thing you can give and you don't lose, right? If you give somebody money, technically you lose money, right? Your balance sheet, costs and balances, costs and inputs and outputs, whatever, right? That's this world. But the next world is love, right? And love, if you love someone, you don't lose love. Love is magnified by loving. Giving love to someone, giving joy to someone brings you joy. One of the really, really fantastic feedbacks I got from a therapist, former therapist of mine, was I was like whinging on and like all these anxieties and like all these like, all this stuff I was in my head. And he was like, listen, you have to stop. Like you have to get out of your head. It's not that it's not important, it is, but it's taking up all of your life. And the way to actually bring healing to yourself is to refocus your attention. And what he suggested I do is I start volunteering somewhere. And by bringing joy and goodness and help to someone else, you get outside of your head and you see what you're doing. You see that you are a conduit of goodness in the world. You are giving to someone else. You have a new image of yourself, and it's an image that reinforces that dynamic. By giving to others, you don't lose. You only are marbin b'simcha, right? The expansion of joy is a refusal of finitude. It's a refusal that we are like concrete, finite objects. It's a refusal of this world. Purim is Mashiach, because Purim is saying you give and you don't lose. Yes, you might have like $100 less in your bank or something like that. But what do you really have in the end of the day? Something much more valuable, which is doing goodness in the world. We have a world which tries to make us too scared to do as much good as we can because we're worried about being disadvantaged, and not irrationally. And that's horrible, right? We need a Purim world. We need a Purim world in which we are encouraged in every way, shape, or form as we have to make ourselves available and useful to others, such that we can be that conduit of generosity, that whenever someone sticks out their hand to take, you don't judge them, you give. You don't adjudicate, you give. And this is a really great point. You can't double count charity on Purim, right? Like, let's say you have money set aside for charity. You can't be like, great, that's my charity money. I'll use that for my gift for the poor on Purim. You can't, like, what's it called? What's he doing? Like, you can't use it as your tax-free benefits or whatever. You can't count this on your balance sheet. It is not an actuarial day. This is a day in which what you are doing is you are caring about the right things. And all you are doing now is what you've 2 weeks, you have gotten all of your blocks out of the way, all of your resistances, because you've learned how to love yourself, and you've learned, it's a lifelong process, but you've been practicing loving. You've been practicing joy giving. And now that you've practiced it, you're ready to rock and roll. And you're ready that when the opportunity comes to you, boom, you give. No second thoughts. Kol haposhet yado litol notnin lo. Anyone who sticks out their hand, automatic, you just give. You just give. It's worth noting also what you give is sufficient for them to have a Purim. You give to make sure they have a meal, like a nice meal. Before COVID times, I would go around and just like look for people. This is not me. Whatever, it's not about me. I would go around and look for people and I would just like buy them sandwiches or whatever, right? Like that, like to make sure they have like a nice sandwich. Like a nice sandwich and like a nice and like a good a pop or a beer or like, you know, a nice bag of chips or whatever, right? Like a nice meal. Make sure someone has like something that they really genuinely enjoy, because the real point is enjoyment. That's the real point. On Purim, what you're giving is pleasure, enjoyment, an opportunity to celebrate, and everyone has a right to that. Okay. So. Excellent.
I have a question that
Please.
I don't want to take the conversation off track, so feel free to.
Please.
So what if like the way people find pleasure is actually destructive or like addictive or something? Like it's not good. Do you know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, that's a great question.
And I don't want to take the conversation off track, so.
Right. I mean, this is the question, right? In terms of like, you know, like a panhandler on the street, right? And like, oh, what if they use the money for something self-destructive or what have you? I think that's a good question. I think that is a real question. I don't think we're people's bosses. Now, I don't think you should go out and like buy somebody like heroin, right? There's limits. I don't think you should go and like do something that's gonna, you know, if it's something that genuinely hurts somebody, then I don't think that's what's entailed. But you know, like there's a fine line, right? Like, I think the point is that you're giving something to somebody that's going to be received generously. That's going to be received with gratuity. So like let's say that you're concerned, like giving someone money or something means that you're giving an opportunity to do self-harm. Well, that's a real question. Yeah, like Yitzhak just said in the chat, like you don't give candy to someone diabetic, right? Who's going to go into sugar shock. That's true. Right? You don't give somebody harmful. So let's say you do feel concerned about that. I would encourage you then to like kind of really tip the scales and the balance the other way and like go and like get like something really nice to give. Like let's say it's like a physical object, like food or like a nice gift or something like that. Really make sure like one's compensating to that. It will be whatever it is. It will be received with the right, you know, that your intention will come through. What won't come across is that you're keeping something from somebody. I think that's what's like keeping me from saying like you should have like control over this. Like the issue is that I think Like, I would carry around like granola bars, and I give someone a granola bar, on the street or whatever, because I was like concerned about, like, I don't want to give people money. And they were like, yeah, I don't want a granola bar. Like, what do you think of me? And I think like I took that really to heart. I was like, good point. I mean, not important. This is just like regular. I would carry around granola bars. It's like, yeah, good point. Like, you're a grown man. This is a snack you give a child. Like, it's clear my intention of like wanting to be generous to somebody or whatever, or wanting them to feel good, is not coming across. They're feeling withheld from. So I would say maybe that's a good criterion, is like, make sure when you give to someone, they don't feel withheld from, that they feel excited to receive, whatever that is. Okay, so again, Rambam, and this is my strong claim, but I do believe it very strongly. The mitzvah that Rambam cares the most about on Purim, and the mitzvah that I think he's right in caring the most about on Purim, the most important mitzvah on Purim is not like the Suda and Mishalach Manos, those are things we all talk about, but the most important one is gifts to the poor, because Purim is about becoming a pure conduit of generosity, and especially to those who need it the most. He says, and this is how he caps it off. Mutav la'adam laharbos v'matonos la'evyonim. Mi laharbos v'sudaso v'shloach manos l'reav. It is best for somebody to prioritize or maximize giving gifts to the poor than to make the biggest Suda possible, or to give the most shalach manos to your friends. I wonder if that's how the balance sheet ends up playing out in many people's Purim observances. The biggest cost item, ticket cost item, should be matanos le'evyonim, he says, not any of the other things. It's not about what you get, it's about what you give. And becoming a giver is the practice of Purim, not caring about what you get. Doesn't matter what you get. You're full of joy already. You had 2 weeks in which you were taking care of yourself. You are good to go, and you are ready to give. Purim is that explosion. So Shosha had said before, like, you can't release what you don't have inside. Absolutely right. And that's what the 2 weeks before Purim are about. Making sure you're learning how to give love to yourself. You're learning how to give care to yourself. You're learning how to give joy to yourself, such that when Purim comes, you don't need to be anxious about like whether you get yours. You are ready to give. You're ready to let it flow, whatever it is. I really think it's a lesson for all of life, right? Self-care is immensely important, such that then we are making ourselves able to give to others, such that then we can engage in meaningful activities. We can be doing good, and we can do good in the world. She'ein shem simcha gedola u'mefo'ora ella l'sameach lev aniyim v'yasobim v'almanos v'gerim. Because there is no category of joy greater or more beautiful than to make the heart of the poor, the orphan, the widow, and the stranger, the refugee, the immigrant happy. That's the essence of joy. The essence of joy isn't what you get. The essence of joy is making other people happy. This is not like a chiddush, right? But like, I think Purim runs the risk of becoming a day that celebrates hedonism. And Rambam is pushing back strong in saying that there is a place for the boundlessness of joy, but it's the boundlessness of what flows out of you, not the boundlessness of your grubby little needs. You satisfy your needs such that then you're able to satisfy others. Sham sameach lev ha'amlalim ha'elu, one who brings joy to the hearts of these people with troubles, right? These downtrodden people. Dome lishchina. What's the essence of Purim? Apotheosis. You become like God on Purim. You become like God on Purim. But this is the radical idea of Jewish God. Being like God is not having power over people. Being like God is being the most loving and caring and generous towards the people who have the least. That's what God is. And how do you do imitatio Dei? How do you make yourself like God? You bring love and joy and happiness to those who need it the most. Say that again. Apparently I froze a little bit, or maybe it was just that I was like this. The Jewish God is not a God of power, but a God of kindness. It's not a God of having power over others. It's a God of bringing happiness and love to others. That's literally Purim is the day you become like the Shekhinah. No wonder it's the Messianic holiday. It's the day in which you achieve that level of Mashiach, of Yemos Mashiach, right? Yemos Olam Haba. Shenemar, Lachayos Ruach Shefalim, Lachayos Lev Nidchaim. To revive the spirit of the lowly and revive those with broken hearts. That's Purim. So, in short, I mean, we're not done, but I just kind of do a quick pause and summary. We started with this kasha, right? Of like, oh, okay, so Purim is this messianic infinite day of euphoria and ecstasy. But the main mistake we make with feelings is that we think that they're contained inside of us. But the boundlessness of Purim's joy is channeled into practice to make us the most enthusiastic, beginning with the core of ourself, with a Suda, and then moving on to friends and acquaintances with gifts. But that's all just priming the pump for the real essence of Purim, which is giving to people you don't know, giving to people you don't get anything back from, right? You give a nice basket, like a nice gift basket to your friend, right? Like, good, like, all right, they see what a good friend you are. But giving to someone you'll never see again, that's Purim, because it's just being a giver. It's being generosity in the world. It's just letting the love and the kindness and the goodness flow through you. Okay, comments, thoughts, objections? Don't object to joy.
Josh?
Yeah.
Can you just explain again the connection to the sort of the messianic feeling?
Sure. So in the first text, or I think maybe you came in after we saw, Rambam says that all of the texts, the prophecies, and of the Ksuvim are all going to be negated when Mashiach comes, except for Esther. So there's something messianic about Purim, and we're trying to explore what that is. And my claim through this is that the messianic quality of Purim is its boundlessness, but it's not boundlessness of intake. It's boundlessness of generosity and giving. That halacha becomes a channel through which halacha and really yourself become a channel through which this goodness and generosity flow.
One more question. Can you just, like, the connection with Yom Kippur, Yom HaKippurim? What's the difference, the subtle differences between the two, or the similarity?
That's a whole big inyan. But I would say that Yom Kippur and Purim are both days that partake of the Messianic. They're both days that partake of this feeling of boundlessness. With Purim, with Yom Kippur, it's about the boundlessness of tshuva, i.e., the boundless love of forgiveness and acceptance. Whereas here, it's that dynamic goes that way. This dynamic goes down, right? We are actually in this way in the place of God, because again, in Megillas Esther, God doesn't appear. God doesn't show up in Megillas Esther. God's hidden. Well, where's God hidden? As the Kotzker Rebbe says, wherever you let God in, right? Are you going to godify yourself? Are you going to transcend the level in which you like God? Like, the thing about God, right, is that God doesn't need to worry about what God gets. That's the level we're getting on Purim. God doesn't worry about what God gets. God gives. Right? The Ramak, the Moshe Cordovero, in his Tomer Devorah, he says, God is sovel alvim, elbow. God suffers. God suffers insult. Like, how many times do we spit in the face of God, but we're still alive? Think about how amazing God is, right? Like, how many people are like just megadef, right? Just complete blasphemers, totally just doing terrible things in the world. But God still keeps this world going. Wow, right? Purim is, I mean, again, like Purim is not just like getting over yourself. Purim is Adar first of taking care of yourself, such that then when you reach Purim, you don't need to be watching the gates of yourself anymore. You can just open them up. You can just open them up to give. You're not worried. Yourself isn't an object of your concern anymore. You've learned to turn your attention away. But then in that way, you've actually discovered the true joy. The true joy isn't worrying, because if you're worried about what you get, you're always worrying. The true joy is immersion in making sure that others get.
You know, I kind of feel that Purim, I don't know if you've thought about this before, the movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray, you know, he takes, and then he learns to give. And once he learns to give, he goes to that final party, and that party I always think is like Purim. It's like that day of Purim, that's Suda.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. Yes, Purim's day we become like Bill Murray. It's pretty cool. Nisim asked, just to clarify again, why is it that the books of the prophecies and the writings are negated in the Yemos Mashiach? Because the prophecies are about getting us to the place of Mashiach, right? Once Mashiach comes, prophecies are now outdated, right? They're done. We did it. But there's something else to be said, which Lauren got to and Rambam hints at, which is that also like the prophecies are about healing exile, right? Healing wounds. And Mashiach is a time in which all wounds will be healed. Well, those anxieties, you know, those anxious concerns over what we need will go away. And again, like kind of shifting that to an emotional description, that's Adar and Purim. Adar is providing love and healing to yourself and joy and happiness. Give like self-care. I really think Adar is about self-care, such that when Purim comes, you are now in a position in which you can care for others, like care for others in a really full and full-throated way. You know, one of the famous examples of the kind of like the paradox of Purim is that there's a famous line in the Talmud. It says, "Mechayev inish lebesume b'puraya ad lo yada, ad lo yada, ben arur haman levarach Mordechai." Right? One has to become so fragrant. What do you think fragrant means? Well, wait, pause. Let's talk about what it means. One has become so fragrant that what you can't tell the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. All right, so what's the classic understanding of what becoming fragrant means? Drunk, yeah, it's getting drunk, right? You know, you're hanging out with somebody that's been drinking a lot, you're like, whew, boy. But I think that it's, you know, I love that the language of Besume is used here for a number of reasons. One, it's a language that the Zohar uses a lot. And the Zohar is deeply ingrained in, I think I talked about this in the video with Renee, an olfactory sense, right? Smell. No, I was actually talking about this with my chavrusa, never mind. But it's all about smell. Because what is smell? Smell invades your nostrils. Smell permeates your being. Smell is a thing of boundlessness, right? Smell is based on nothing, right? It's just recha ba'almahi, right? It's just like vapor. You can't touch it. But very interestingly, there's no bracha achrona for besamim. There's no havdalah for Purim. Purim never ends. Smell never ends. Smell just keeps on dissipating forever, right? The molecules just keep on dissipating out there. Purim never really ends. There's a boundlessness to Purim. And I think, and that's what it's describing, the psychology of paradox, right? That conjunction of opposites. You can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai, good and bad. That seems like, again, that would be something that law can't tolerate. You're not allowed to do bad things. It's illegal. Now, there's another class, which I'm not going to get to, but there's text that I will keep from you about how Purim does let you do some bad things. But that's a different class. Only little bad things, don't worry. But there's like kind of, that's like the Mardi Gras, like kind of transgressive aspects of Purim. And we can get to how that's also like a manifestation of infinity. But I want to focus, but here what we're really talking about is the positive infinity, or the boundlessness of love. And here what we have is, we're not going to look at the story in which someone murders somebody else. But here I think what we have is like this description of something exceeding yourself, something you're just filling yourself up with so much booze. I don't know. The truth is, okay, here's my reading. So Rambam says, what do you have to do to get drunk on Purim? You get enough that you get tipsy. That's like the classic, like, don't drink and drive, like mom type of answer. Fine. Other people say you have to get so smashed that you can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai, and you might end up like shechting your friend by accident. That's another way of putting it, right? And you'll see a lot of people just like totally just really wasted on Purim. Some people do that. I think Yeah, Max?
But cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordecai. They're not like diametric opposites. They're just different sides to the same coin. It's not like one thing is terrible, like, because you're negating, you're saying like,
oh no, are you gonna
because
make
you're what? Sorry, no, because you're cursing Haman and you're blessing Mordecai. It's like they're related. It's not, they're not completely.
Oh, you're saying they're dialectically related.
Yes.
Okay, well, they're more than that related. This will you know who's gonna really love this? Ari, I'm so glad you're here. Are you still here, Ari? Oh, you might have left.
Yeah, he left.
Oh no. Well, what are you gonna do?
Well,
Right.
and what Maxine was starting to talk about is actually like my favorite lesson ever learned about Purim.
Yeah.
Is that the whole concept of you're supposed to be so intoxicated that you can't tell right from wrong, blessed from cursed, is that there's actually no difference. There's just different ways of learning lessons in life. You can learn them a really hard way, or you can learn them a really easy way.
Yeah, like you're blessing the good and cursing the bad. You're affirming, the good, negating the bad. It's
Great. Yeah, no, I think you're all intuiting and explicating something. I think that's quite like very much in Purim's essence. Ari's gonna really miss this.
Sorry.
You're here?
No, Tzitzik.
Oh, hey, yes. Wait, 1 second. Let me do this. So, y'all know gematria? All right, cool. So, Arur Haman, ready? Aleph is what? 1. All right, someone open their calculator app. Okay, so Aleph is 1. Resh, 200. Vav is 6. Resh is 200. So that's 407, right? All right, great. Hey is 5. So that's 412. Mem is 40. That's 452. And Nun is 50. That's 502. Okay? So our Haman is 502. Bet is 2. Resh is 200. So 202. Vav is 6. 208. Kaf is 20. 228. Mem is 40. 268. Resh is 200. 468. Dalet is 4. 472. Chaf is 20. 492. And Yud is 10, which is 502. So it's literally the same. I'm not a gematria guy. Ari is, which I'm very upset he's not here for. But he knows this one already, I'm sure. So first of all, so Susie brought let's say a philosophical reading to this, right? That actually like life presents us with data, experiences, and our judgments deem them good or bad. But ultimately, they are plastic, right? They are influenced by the way we relate to them. So you're able to draw good from the bad, or move away from something you thought was good, but you realize that actually it's more complicated than that. So they are actually the same. They're related. Life is not good versus bad. Life is more complex than that. It's more holistic than that. Maxine had a more interventionary approach in saying you actually you can transform it. You can intervene in it and actually take the good from the bad, or find the bad in the good, or something like that. You actually manipulate it in the way that you relate to it. I think you're getting at something. You're both getting at something very essential to Purim, which is that Purim is about actually just getting beyond these categories, beyond these conventional categories of good and bad. Rambam says that good and bad morality comes from the tree of knowledge, but the tree of life is actually not about good and bad. The tree of life is just true and false. It's just what is and what isn't. What is contains, what is good, in a sense that's not good, morally good, but good in the sense that it is what it is. And it contains the good and the bad. Purim is also, in that Messianic boundless spirit, containing all, even opposites. So yes, Baruch, Mordechai, and Arur Haman, the fact that they are the same in gematria is telling us a radical truth that we can only really achieve in that certain boundless state, right? If you can If you love, I mean, I think that's the essence of love too, right? Love is not a moral judgment. You don't love someone because they earn it, right? It's the people you love often that tick you off the most. Love is not something that maps to what is deserved. Love is actually specifically something, especially on Purim, let's say, that you give to people who don't deserve it. That's the testing ground for love, right? Love is not being nice. Love is something more than just nice. Okay. So to close, that's about the doing minor bad things. To close, I want to actually bring us, Rambam is like, I think shown us a different side of Rambam's personality. We usually think of Rambam as like a rationalist. How could a rationalist, a doctor, right? How could he get Purim, right? This ecstatic day. Oh, I didn't get my rereading. So people focus on Mechayev Inish B'Sumei Puraya Ad Lo Yada Ben Baruch Mordechai or Haman as being about getting drunk, right? Whether it's getting tipsy and getting like nodding off, or it's getting like schmeiced out of your mind. I don't think Purim. I think I want to reapply Rambam's criteria to this question as well. I don't think you have to get drunk at all on Purim. I think if alcohol is a tool that you can use, then I think it's a good tool to use. I think Purim is a day in which it's creating an environment or opportunities to use that tool. And alcohol, a social lubricant, right, helps to blur the boundaries in a productive way between yourself and another. Not in a way, chas v'shalom, in which you take advantage of somebody or take liberty with somebody. That is never allowed. Not on Purim, no excuse. But it's a day in which, again, you don't see the differences between people. Someone sticks out their hand, you just give. You give them the keys to your car. You give them a title to your house. Whatever it is, right? Alcohol means that your boundaries are down in a way that you can give of yourself otherwise, conventionally speaking. But I would say, just like you make a feast as what your means are, like Maxine's kind of push that, if a vegan, meat isn't in their means, but you find this special vegan food that's going to make them very happy. Similarly, you find the special booze type thing that's going to make you very loose. You're going to find special booze type thing that's going to make you very generous. It might not be booze. It could be chocolate. It could be whatever is the thing that brings you to the place in which you are just there. You are full of love and ready to go. Whatever that thing is, if it's drink, drink. But it doesn't have to be drink. I think there's a really unhealthy reading of Purim that's about getting wasted. And that's not, you can't observe Purim if you're wasted. You need to be in a position in which you can be present and loving and generous to others. Now, if alcohol gets you there, great. But if alcohol makes you mad, if alcohol makes you grumpy, if alcohol makes you paranoid or whatever, then alcohol is not the thing that's going to help you do Purim. The thing that's going to help you do Purim is you've spent 2 weeks trying to figure that out, right? Now you know what you need. Now you know your special treat that's going to get you there. Again, alcohol it often works. I'm not against, I love a nice drink. But the point isn't the drinking. The point is what the drinking theoretically does. Whatever gets you to the place in which you are a pure conduit of generosity. That's the point. Chayav inish lebesume. You need to become fragrant. You need to become someone who just emanates outwards, giving indiscriminately, whether they're good or bad. They deserve it or not. They are cursed or blessed. They get the same treatment. That's the love of Mashiach. That's the love of Purim. And as Rambam says, and he says we can draw this into this, it's interesting. Shabbos doesn't have a mitzvah of simcha, but Yontif does. Yontif, we are also misameach. We're also having simcha on Yontif. And so simchas Yontif. So shehu ochel v'shoteh chayev la'achil. Boom! Even on a regular Yontif. And it is that when you eat or drink, you need to also cause others to eat, right? This is a hif'il, which is the causative binyan in Hebrew. So it's a little bit of grammar. Grammar is very spiritual. Here's the root, aleph kaf lamed, right? It means to eat. In the transitive sense, it means to, right? It means to eat. But when you have the hey in front of it and the yud right here, then you see it's in a different form. It's the causative form. So just as you eat, you need to make sure others can eat as well. Whatever you take in has to come out. You take into yourself so that you can become someone who can give to others. Self-care is essential because it's what we need to make sure we can actually actualize ourselves and be the people we want ourselves to be the people we know we can be, giving to others, generous and loving and caring. We take care of ourselves so that we are cared for, and we see that we are someone who can care. I've cared for myself. That's actually proof that I can be someone who gives care to another. And you do. Lageri yatel amana, you give to the stranger, the orphan, the widow. Im sha'ar ha'anim ha'amlalim, with all of the other persons of without the means, right? The impoverished persons. Aval misha, and here's the fire. Misha Noel daltos chatzro, ve'ochel v'shotehu v'anav ishto, ve'eno ma'achil mashkel aniyim. Someone who locks the gates of their house, eats, drinks, makes merry, you and your children and your spouse, but you don't feed others. You don't make sure others have what to drink, right? For the poor and for the bitter of spirit, right? People are having a hard time. That's what that means. Ein zo simchas mitzvah, ella simchas kresei. That's not the simcha of a mitzvah. That's the simcha of your tummy. That's the simcha of your boich, right? Of your belly. That's the wrong reading of Purim. That's about what you get. Do I get to have what I need on Purim? Do I get to feel happy? Do I get to be happy? No. By making others happy, that's the simcha of mitzvah. What's a mitzvah simcha? What's a messianic simcha? It's, again, input turns into output. You eat, yes. You have joy. You charge your batteries. And what comes out of you is boundlessness and love. Purim is a program. Purim is a practice. And the truth is, so is joy. Joy is something we do, not just something we have. And I think that is, some radical intervention on Purim, but I think a really necessary program, especially in these times, in which I don't know about you, but for me, days are hard. Each day is a challenge in a lot of ways, and so easy we're all isolated, right? We're all trapped in our apartments. We're all trapped in our houses, whatever it is. And Purim, I think, is an opportunity to try to use our creativity to do two things, right? In the first 2 weeks of Adar, we remember that we're somebody who deserves love and care as well. And we learn how to provide those things to ourselves. We remember that we have a certain basic dignity and that we deserve what we need. And we offer those things to ourselves. And in the end of that process, you've actually then done the practice of what it means to provide love and care to another. And you've gotten yourself ready to try to look creatively, insistently, enthusiastically for ways to bring that energy outside too. To look for persons to give to, friends to give to, and also, again, to bring yourself into the mix, to have a Suda to the extent of your means, to give gifts to your friends and to create that circuit of love. And most importantly, to look for opportunities to give, to make sure that joy and pleasure and real a day of happiness is not just a privilege but a right that everyone deserves. So I wish everybody a happy Purim, a Purim of joy. Thanks so much. Havdalah. Kabbalah Shabbos. It's back tomorrow, 4:30. 4:30. We'll be hearing Shabbos Zachor. Same Zoom link. 4:30 Shabbos Zachor, so make sure to zoom in on time. And then we'll do a Kabbalah Shabbos, a good party, get this Purim energy going. And Havdalah 6:50 Saturday night, Kabbalah class, deeper into the Zohar, the Torah of the margins, the Torah on the path. Be really beautiful. Such a zchus to learn Zohar with people. And that will be on Tuesday, also 7:30, and Purim on Thursday. 6 o'clock. Be there, be square. So have a great almost Shabbos.
Okay.